This is exciting, isn't it?
Here we go, guys, in 5, 4, 3.
Here we go.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Thank you for the good programming. I appreciate the content and really enjoyed every moment.
It's a privilege to have you on your station and listen. It's good stuff. It's very educational.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It is Monday, February 24th, and we are in Joliet with our good friends, the Southland Friends of Labor. This broadcast is sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor, a political action committee that supports friendly candidates running in South Cook County, Will County, and Kankakee County. This broadcast was recorded earlier today. Joining me now, very much live, is Tom Villanova, Southland Friends of Labor board member, retired IBEW Local 134, former president of the Chicago and Cook County Building Trades. Tom, thanks so much for inviting WCPT to be with you today.
Thank you again, Joan, for doing this again. We had such a blast last time when we did it, and hopefully we got out to everybody and the right people are listening. You're going to hear me say this a million times today. There's never been a more crucial time for all the union members to stick together.
Amen to that.
We have a target on our back right now, no matter who you look at, no matter who the secretary is, no matter who the president is. With this guy, we've got a target on our back, and we better all put our differences aside and stick together for the good of our membership and for the good of everybody's future.
Yep. Do you want to introduce the board members real quick?
Sure.
Since I have you here.
Southland Friends of Labor, we've expanded our board, and what we've done is we're trying to get a representative from all the different unions on here, and we've been pretty successful at it. Dave Main, Labor's Local 5, retired. Gary Ciazio, AFSCME, Local 29, retired. Kevin Clancy, Sprinkler Fitters, 281, retired. Jamie Crandall, Boilermakers, Local 1. Frank D. Giovanni, Labor's Local 5. Mark Ferry, Steelworkers. Kaitlynd French, Joliet Nurses. You heard from Kaitlynd last time. John Grande, Chicago Western Lakeport Council. Phil Hitzenberger, United Auto Workers, Local 588. My good friend Bob Howard is going to be speaking in a little bit. Retired Carpenters, Local 272. Ken Casaitis, Painters District Council, 14. Mike Lafferty, Roofers, Local 11. Anthony Melito, United Food and Commercial Workers, 881. John Moore, Columbia Faculty Union. Eric Merwaki, Bricklayers and Allied Crafts. Dave Murray, Ironworkers Local 63. Bruce Nelson, Carpenters 272, retired. Andy Rico, Local 176 IBEW. This is Andy Rico's home here. Thank you, Andy, for letting us be here today. My good friend from Springfield, Al Riley, retired state rep. Al and I worked together a lot on labor issues down in Springfield. When I was down in Springfield, he helped us a ton. Mike Shower, Sprinkler Fitters, 281. Lori Summers, registered nurse and a Will County coroner. Lori's here. Bill Wilkins, Plumbers Local 130, and Al Whitman, Teamsters 710.
Oh, and you forgot Joan Esposito, SAG-AFTRA.
Yeah, that's
Joan
right.
Esposito, SAG-AFTRA.
We're going to make Joan a board member. We're going to make Joan a board member now if everybody want to vote on it. I know it would be unanimous, but we're going to make her a board member.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We will take the full vote when we're off the air a little bit.
It's unanimous already. We took the vote.
Okay. Sounds good. You know, Tom was showing me right before we started this broadcast about some of the things that are coming the way of unions. Some of the bad stuff I'm sure hasn't gotten here yet, but some of it has. Talk a little bit about this, Tom.
Well, we talked about it on Friday's broadcast, just to touch on it, but for all those that don't know, the Department of Defense has halted all project labor agreements. No more project labor agreements with the Department of Defense. And the other departments are looking at it now. So we don't know what's going to happen with the infrastructure bill that was passed, if they're going to backtrack on that and rescind all the project labor agreements. For those that aren't familiar with the project labor agreement, it's an agreement that we agree not to strike or do anything like that, and the job is going to be done 100% union. They've already rescinded these. That's just the first shot across the bow. Another one that is the more bizarre than that one is there's a bill in Congress now to abolish OSHA. Completely do away with OSHA. Is this bizarre or any? I mean, and one of the things, it's a Representative Andy Biggs from Arizona, the bastion of unionism, but to do away with OSHA, the things that keep people safe, they want to do away with that whole department. Some of the other things too, the Department of Labor, new Secretary of Labor, she was a congresswoman from Oregon. She was against right to work, but all of a sudden, now that she's at the Department of Labor, guess what? Guess who's for right to work? It's for right to work, as Joan says, right to work for less, or as I say, right not to work. So all of a sudden, she's flipped, and it is for right to work. There's some other things, too. Last week, there was a blast sent out, and I think we got all the apprentices coming in here now, which is great. I want them to hear all of this.
While the apprentices, hey, welcome. I'm so glad you could come in. Help yourself to some breakfast. So good to see you. While they're coming in, we have a special guest that we would like to call up to the desk. She thought she was just coming here to shake some hands and eat some breakfast, but no, she's coming here to do a radio interview. Congresswoman Robin Kelly joins us. Very great to have you here. Grab a headset, join us right now. She represents Illinois' 2nd District.
Robin's been a great friend of labor all along, from her history from all along. She's always been with us and always been at Southland events. Robin?
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for rolling with us and joining us here on WCPT.
Thanks for having me.
Man, you've got your work cut out for you, don't you now? It is everything, the smallest, forget about the big things, the smallest things. Everything's a fight now. Everything is, I mean, I don't know if the courts are going to save us. They seem to be trying to put an end to the worst of it, but then we see where the White House doesn't care what the court rules and is doing things that the court's telling them not to do. This is a terrible, brave new world.
It's unprecedented, and we are fighting as hard as we can, but of course, as you know, we're fighting with one hand tied behind our backs, and that's why everyone in this room is so important, and other rooms, other entities, other organizations are so very important. We've worked with all the Democratic governors, Democratic AGs. We've met with countless organizations. We're working closely with Democracy Forward. They're bringing a lot of the cases to court, and as you said, we are winning. But, if they keep going up to the Supreme Court, we don't know, what will happen then. And we just need 3 fearless, brave Republicans with spines to vote with us in the House, because they're only ahead of us by 2 people. So we're really trying to put the pressure on those Republicans that are in districts that Kamala won, or districts that are on the
Swing
bubble.
state districts.
Yes, swing states, to really put the pressure on them. But also, we shouldn't let Boss, Mary Miller, or Darren LaHood off the hook, too. We need to be calling them every day, and we need to be relentless. I know Mary Miller will never change. I don't know about the other 2. I doubt it, but they still need to hear from their constituents.
I was out in McHenry County yesterday talking to the McHenry County Democratic women, and they specifically said, what can we do? And it was like, start local. Start with the people who are in your elected districts. Some of the people in this room are represented by Darren LaHood. Call his office. Let him know that you're not happy with him. A year or so ago, I had his dad, Ray, on the radio with me. And I forget what we were talking about, but we were in agreement. And at the end, I said, so, Ray, did you ever talk to your son about this? And there was this long pause, and he said, He said, yeah, but we don't always see eye to eye.
They definitely don't. Ray and I went to Bradley University, not at the same time, and we're actually on a search committee together. And oftentimes people have come to him and said, what is up with Darren? And I know Darren, we've traveled together. I know their family. It's very disappointing because at some point, where does your values come into play? When are you going to do what's right, regardless of if you lose or not, but you're doing the right thing for the people?
Yeah. I know that a lot of the people who call into my show, whether or not you guys are in the majority, they want to see you behaving like we've seen Republicans behave. Slow things down. Speak out loud and long and frequently, and generally make a nuisance of yourself if you can. I guess taking a page from the old Mitch McConnell playbook, make them miserable, make them slow, make them work for everything they get.
And we are trying to do that. We just haven't had that many committee meetings yet, but the budget committee, because of the Democrats, it took 12 to 14 hours to get through that committee led by my colleague Brendan Boyle from Pennsylvania. We are doing that. All this last week was a district work period. I had 2 press conferences. I had a teletown hall, 11,000 people were a part of the teletown hall. We did a Know Your Rights. Yeah, we have been active, but it just depends on where you get your news. And we realize we have to really, ratchet up the social media because that's where 75% of the people get their news now.
Yeah. And I know there are still people out there who say, well, when I was growing up, Republicans and Democrats worked together across the aisle. Things were bipartisan. That's what I want to see now. And I don't know if you disagree, Robin, but my response is it takes 2 to tango. And when the other side doesn't want to talk to you, doesn't want to include you, doesn't reach out and say, hey, Robin, I've got this bill, and I think it's right up your alley, and I'd love to get you to co-sponsor it. You can't force someone to work with you.
Actually, a lot of us get along much better than people think. And I just had a Republican reach out to me. But for me now, it's hard to reach back. But I still have to look at the bill, and is it good for, my constituents? Is it good for the American people? But what they say privately, they don't act out publicly when it comes time to voting. And that's the most important thing. But also, the American people are voting against their best interest. When we tried to tell them what was going to happen, oh, that's just him talking, he's not going to do it. Well, he's doing everything.
Did you not pay attention to his first term where he actually did the things he said he was going to do?
Misremembering, a lot of that. But even Project 2025, we tried to put, that out there. We tried to not leave a stone unturned, but whatever we did, it wasn't good enough. And that's why we're, in this situation. But we're out all over this country. Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a big friend of labor, he is all over the place, trying to talk to every entity that he can. We are very busy. So, hopefully we can, there's 3 Republicans we can work on, but if not, in the long term, not so long term, hopefully Leader Jeffries will become Speaker Jeffries. And the only reason he didn't this time was because of the gerrymandering that occurred. For one, in North Carolina, they wiped off 3 of my colleagues. They didn't even have a chance to run again.
Yeah, gerrymandering and voter suppression.
Definitely.
I'm so sad that it doesn't look like anytime soon we'll see the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Because, I was talking to an investigative reporter about the next elections, and he said, forget gerrymandering. If you've got voter suppression, you don't even need gerrymandering. You can always win an election even if you're in the minority with voter suppression.
We passed it twice in the House, so we could not get it passed in the Senate. As you know, it needs 60 votes, and we haven't been there. And even though when John Lewis was alive, everyone loved John Lewis, brought their kids and family to meet John Lewis, Democrat or Republican, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to that bill, we have not yet been able to get it passed.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for interrupting your breakfast to come talk with Tom and me. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you, and I just want to thank Labor for what they do and what they've done. We can win if we're all fighting together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin Kelly. Everybody, thank you to Robin Kelly.
We'll be back in just a minute.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We are with the Southland Friends of Labor in Joliet. They are graciously sponsoring our broadcast, which was recorded earlier today. I am joined, of course, again by Tom Villanova, Southland Friends of Labor board member. And we have another special guest. We're joined by Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant, Will County Executive. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here this morning.
So what's going on in Will County that we need to know about?
Well, Will County, we have a lot going on, and I'm very proud to serve in this role now for my second term, and I'm just going to give a little bit of background on Will County. We are 700,000 people strong here in Will County. We continue to be one of the communities, the county that continue to grow. We're 836 square miles. We're a microcosm of the state of Illinois. You know, we have our rural areas, our urban areas, our small downtowns, and there is a lot going on. Again, just some statistics about what we are happening and why labor is so important to us. We are number one in the metropolitan region for new and expanding companies for the last 11 years. That's our entire region here. In Will County, we're number 16 for new and expanding companies, number one county in job creation in the last 5 years. Number one in job creation. Number one in Illinois for single-family home constructions. People want to live here in Will County. We have the largest inland port in the entire North America, over 3 million containers of freight flowing through the port. So you know that means we have a lot of transportation issues. And because of that, Will County has an over $130 million infrastructure plan to make sure our roads are safe. We continue to do that with our region. We continue to do that throughout our communities because we know the truck traffic is very large. It's probably one of our number one complaint, but we have a plan here in Will County, and we're very fortunate. Over $625 billion passes through Will County annually. That's 97% of the gross regional product around the Chicagoland area. 80% of the gross state product of Illinois and 3.5% of the nation gross domestic product come right through Will County. It's
I don't think most people know that.
They do not. So we do have a lot going on here. We are now currently, as I said, we've had our second largest infrastructure plan with the $130 million focused on infrastructure. We know about the Water Commission, where we have 7 communities that are connecting water to Lake Michigan. Obviously, we have people who ride I-80. We have the I-80 corridor going on. And we just received a grant for $27 million that we're crossing our fingers we're still going to get for an overpass working with our rails.
Federal grant, you know?
It's a federal grant.
Let's hope it comes fast.
Yes, so there is a lot going on here.
That's amazing. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
No, we're very fortunate here in Will County, and I always say it's because of our relationships. We have a great relationship with our local businesses. We have a great relationship with our labor unions, and a great relationship with our mayors. And this is really, we're a large community. Like I said, 700,000 people strong. But at the same time, we know how to work together. We prioritize working together and making sure we all know what we are doing. Are there bumps in the road? There are always bumps in the road. But I'm going to say we're probably one of the few counties that know how to connect with one another to make sure that we are all working together because our focus is making this county better.
Well, that's a real old-fashioned idea.
It sure is, isn't it? Yeah.
Everybody taking a step back and making sure the big picture is visible.
It really is. And truly, we are a unique county, too. People think we're a strong blue-collar we are a strong blue-collar county, but we're not a strong blue county. We're right in the middle here. We like to say we're a purple county. So a lot of our top legislators and our state legislators are Democrats, but our local mayors a lot of them are Republicans. So again, we force ourselves to work hand in hand. Our county board is 11 Democrats, 11 Republicans. Now, I'm not going to say it's easy. We struggle a lot, and sometimes our priorities mesh and we hit each other. butt heads, but in the end, we know the priority is Will County, what's best for the residents, and it's always best for the residents when we work together. And we're very grateful for our friends like Southland Friends of Labor, our Will County building trades, again, because these are men and women who live in our community. They want what's best for our community as well. So we really have the playbook of what's right here in Illinois.
You know, I would say that maybe those Republican mayors could reach out and make things a little smoother. But the way I see what's going on in Washington, they're throwing all of their Republican, leadership at the local and even the state level under the bus. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the clips from some of the Republican congressional town halls where these Republicans are doing their best to say, well, everything's great, and people are screaming at them.
Yeah, this is definitely a different atmosphere, and we're going to have to really work real hard to have our local delegation, our local, and let's face it, there's what I like to say, the traditional Republican and the MAGAs, right? And we really have to work hard to make sure that folks who have been working in this community, despite what political party they are, because I'm going to say we do have a lot of Republicans that support our labor union. We're going to have to empower them to use their voices, because right now they're running scared. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. No one likes to be bashed in the public. No one likes to be diminished. But this is a time to stand up now and show what's important to you, what our principles are. And it really takes folks in the union and our neighbors in the community to say, this is what's important, and we're not going to deal with your BS.
It's interesting for you to say that, Jennifer, because I've seen so many clips from so many town halls where the Republicans, who I'm kind of surprised even had a town hall, are getting screamed at and yelled at, and they're trying to continue to put lipstick on this pig, and they're trying to, and at one point the guy was getting a lot of grief, and he finally said, well, let's just move on, and everybody started screaming. And sometimes you see that and you wonder, is it something that guy thinks about when he leaves the stage? Does it make an impression, or is he just, man, I'm never doing that again,
Well, it should leave an impression. Again, why have a town hall if you're not really there to listen? I served in the General Assembly for 2 terms, and there was a lot of important issues that we came in. And the one thing that I have learned is that you have to be in front of the public. We may not always agree with what's going on, but we have to make sure we listen. And I can tell from experience that my mind has been changed when I listen to the community. If you're not willing to take the heat from people in your constituency, you should not be in this position. You are here to represent the people in that area, and you have to know if they don't feel heard, they're gonna remove you. So I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad maybe they're seeing that what they're thinking isn't really what the everyday people are thinking, and truly what's happening in the federal government is not what everyday people want. The president is doing exactly what he said. Unfortunately, people don't believe that, but now they are seeing it. Every single person, whether they voted for him or not, are going to feel the pain over the next 4 years.
Why did you think it was, aside from your love for Tom, why did you think it was important to come to the Friends of Labor gathering today?
I've been coming to this for 4 years. I truly believe in what the labor movement does. I believe we are better together, and this really inspires me. I think we're going to see over the next couple years people realizing the impact that the unions have. Unions are a community. They're a partner with us in the county of Illinois, and I rely on them to educate me. I rely on them to help me build up Will County, and I'll be honest, they haven't ever disappointed me.
Yeah. And, whether or not the rank and file has figured it out yet, unions are in the crosshairs in a big, bad way. And I'm really worried about what the future looks like, the immediate future, not the long-term future, because I do honestly believe that once people, especially the people who were like, well, I didn't think he'd do that. Oh my God. I thought that was just, him being him. I didn't think he would. Oh no, but me. I thought he would come after you, not me. I think we're going to hear a lot of that. I think that there's going to be a real reckoning when it comes to the midterms, and I think, union members are going to be leading the charge.
I agree.
Hopefully we are, and hopefully all of those federal workers, we talk about Virginia a little bit, and that election's coming up. Hopefully all those federal workers that found themselves out of a job in the last week or two through an email, just for poor performance or whatever nonsense rule that they wanted to use. Hopefully those people will get out and vote the right way, too. And we talk about this, and Jennifer worked with us in Springfield. She worked with us all the time out here, and she's been a great partner with Labor.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Tom. Always
Jennifer
good to see you.
Bertino-Tarrant, Will County Executive. Tom and I are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
We are in Joliet with the Southland Friends of Labor, who've graciously sponsored this broadcast. They're a political action committee. They support candidates running in South Cook County, Will County, and Kankakee County. I'm joined by Tom Villanova, who is the Southland Friends of Labor board member. And speaking of candidates, Tom has some people he'd like to talk about.
We welcome elected officials all the time here, and we've always got a good crowd. I've got, 1, 2, 3, Joan, you'll appreciate this. I got 6 pages, 6 pages of notes here. Kevin Clancy, who's one of our board members, the chairman of Plainfield Township Democrats. Lori Summers, another board member here, Will County Coroner. Denise Winfrey, Will County District 6. Margaret O'Connell, Circuit Court Judge, DuPage County. Mary Kay O'Brien, Illinois Supreme Court. Robin Kelly, who just spoke from the 2nd Congressional District. Jim Tierney, Kankakee Township Highway Commissioner. And my good friend Paul O'Grady, Orland Township Supervisor. Dan Jungles, candidate for Will County Sheriff. Annette Voigt, New Lenox Township or New Lenox trustee candidate. Janera Walters, mayor for Kankakee. Patrick Joyce, Senate 40th. Colette Safford, Will County Circuit Judge. Victoria Bresnahan, Will County Judge. Dr. Kisha McCaskill, Cook County Commissioner. Alex Zappian, Lockport Township Supervisor. And you just heard from Jennifer Bertino-Tarrant, Will County Executive. Mayor Bernard Ashbury, Mayor of Hazelcrest. Geneva Walters, Mayor of Kankakee. Jeannie Lopez, Village of Stager, Mayor. Monica Gordon, Cook County Clerk. And we'll be hearing from State Senator Bill Cunningham in a little bit, and about 2 more people we'll be hearing from him. Thank you to all of the elected officials for being here. We appreciate it. If you weren't here before, I have one little tidbit here from the Southland Friends of Labor Board. If you send in any submissions for anything to the Southland Friends of Labor Board, make sure it has a union bug on it. We are going to throw everything in the garbage from now on that doesn't have a union bug on it. So have a union bug on it. There's never been a more crucial time, and you'll hear this a million times throughout the day today. There's never been a more crucial time for us union members to stick together. We need to stick together now because we've got a target on our back. We're the enemy, if you listen to Washington. So everybody put their egos aside, put the nonsense and your differences aside, and stick together, and let's fight as one group.
Somebody else we expect to be part of that fight is Andy Rico from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 176. He is the business manager and a Southland Friend of Labor board member. Andy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Joan. Appreciate it.
You know, one of the first broadcasting jobs I had, the people on air, the anchors and the reporters, weren't AFTRA or SAG-AFTRA. They were IBEW, which I always thought was, but I was only there a few months, so I was never an official IBEW member, but I feel like I was. I'm with you in spirit.
Yeah.
So what are you guys doing with this strange, brave new world we're in right now?
Well, we'll try to navigate the political climate. I want to, thank everybody for being here. We have all our elected officials, Friends of Labor, our labor leaders for sure. So just trying to work every avenue we can to support, union labor and the rights of working people for sure. Mainly on a local level right now, because obviously we see what's happening on a federal level. But having our elected officials work, closely with us hand in hand, people like Jennifer Bertino, it's definitely crucial at this time.
And thank you so much for letting us take this broadcast here in your beautiful facility. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have everybody here. We're going to open up our training center right next door after the breakfast is over. It's a brand new 30,000 square foot training facility we have. So we'd love to have everybody come over and take a quick little tour.
So these apprentices here, are they from your training center, or are they just?
No, these are not our apprentices.
Those are
Our apprentices are actually out in the field working today, so we don't have class on Monday, which is kind of opportune, so we can do a quick little tour, not interrupt class time. But no, these are not our apprentices, but I'm sure they work closely with our apprentices.
How many members does IBEW Local 176 have?
So we're about 1,250 members. I'd say we're growing right now. We've grown our apprenticeship program. So about 10, 12 years ago, we were just a tick under 50 apprentices across all 5 years of the apprenticeship program. Now we're about 210 apprentices, overall all 5 years.
Wow.
So we've grown tremendously, and the numbers are continue to grow. We're actively interviewing and accepting applications right now. So
really,
yeah. So like I said, we're growing. We're definitely changing our demographics, no doubt. We have a lot of senior members, like this gentleman to my left right here, that are kind of in their sunset years, and it's a good opportunity to have younger members get involved, and it's an exciting time. Absolutely, I see some young eager faces out there, and a lot of good opportunities for sure. So
Andy, for the benefit of everybody listening, could you please explain the apprenticeship program, what the schooling is, what everything is, and the time frames of everything, and how you get in too?
Yeah, so it's a 5-year program. All our apprentices, they'll complete, effectively over 8,000 hours of on-the-job and classroom training. So it's a vigorous program. So our apprentices, they work and go to school at the same time. So they take 1 day off of work every other week to do in-class training. There's a ton of on-the-job training. I tell you that, these young men and women right here, they'll tell you that, most of the skills they learn are on the job, but it's nice to, back it with some formal training at a training center like this. Like I said, it's one of the first things that we had on our agenda is to build a new training facility to grow. So, it's a really good opportunity. It's a fantastic alternative to college, I'll say that. I'm looking at a lot of nodding faces and heads and smiling faces out there. So congratulations on getting with building trades unions and
And anybody who hasn't been through the program, through an apprenticeship school before, please take the time. It's only going to take a little bit of time after we're done here. Tour the apprenticeship school in the back here. It's just to walk through the parking lot here, and you see the hands-on stuff that's being done with everybody.
Yeah, we're still moving in there. We're still growing, but tour the facility and take all this information and share it with your peers. Share it with your high school classmates, family members, all that stuff. Because a lot of people, we're finding out that they don't know. We're doing a lot of engagement and going out to career fairs and engaging high schools and colleges and stuff like that. And now we're actually starting to take an opportunity to bring people into our training center as like a little bit of like a field trip opportunity. But there's no better way to spread the word than word of mouth. I mean, people that you guys know, they trust you guys, engage them and kind of inform them about what the benefits are of being in a labor union.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is, despite what's going on in Washington, this is a great time to join a union, to become an apprentice, instead of racking up, $100,000 worth of debt, you can actually earn while you learn.
Oh, absolutely. After the course of 5 years, I'm looking at a lot of our apprentices. They're making well over $250,000 throughout the course of their 5-year apprenticeship program. Well over $250,000 versus being in debt. That same amount of money. So it's a net difference of nearly $500,000.
Before I let you go, though, I want you to talk about some of the efforts about renewable energy, because I know IBEW is really on the cutting edge of a lot of the renewable energy programs.
Yeah, the energy sector is a huge demand in that. So we've worked hard in Illinois with our legislators to get CEJA enacted, and there's prevailing wage requirements enacted on the solar renewable energy market. So yeah, and again we're treading heavily on it. We're very active on the renewable energy stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Wonderful. Now, were you coached by your brother before you came here today?
Luckily, my brother's not on vacation right now. Otherwise, he might be sitting in the seat because he does a really good job too.
Yeah, he's been a part of our
did a
Southland
great job
Friends of
last
Labor.
time.
Yeah. No, he's been. Well, this gentleman right here next to me too. I've had a lot of good mentors coming up. My brother and Tommy right here, being two of them for sure. So I'm fortunate in that regard, no doubt.
Well, that's wonderful. Please tell Juan Rico we say hello. I hope he's someplace sunny with an umbrella drink in his hand and a lounge chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Andy. Any last bit of information you want to share before we go to a break?
No, I just want to thank everybody and encourage everybody to go out there and spread the good word about union labor and what we're about and what we advocate for.
And the apprentice program, which is a really good deal. Wonderful deal. Andy Rico, IBEW Local 176 Business Manager, Southland Friends of Labor Board Member. Tom Villanova, Southland Friends of Board Member. Tom and I are going to be right back after this.
This is Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
This broadcast is sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor and was recorded earlier today in Joliet, Illinois at the IBEW Local 176 Catering Hall. We are having, I've done a lot of broadcasts, Tom, but rarely one that is infused with bacon smell. I love that. It's driving me a little crazy, but I love that. I'm joined by Tom Villanova, Southland Friends of Labor board member. We are in a minute going to be introducing you to somebody else, but first we have a big thank you.
Thank you to everybody for being here, first of all, but also, where's Marta? Is Marta around? Marta Perellis? Marta? Is Marta around?
She's working. She's been
working.
working for the both of us all morning.
Marta has put this whole thing together over the last few weeks. She sent out all the things. She scheduled everything. She wasn't feeling well last week, and she still did everything, and she got here at 6 this morning with us to help set everything up. So thank you to Marta Perellis. If you see her, thank Marta on your way out, please.
I'm going to thank Marta. Marta organized our whole schedule, gave me all the information I need to introduce people like Bob Howard, president of the Chicago and Western Lakes Port Council for more than 10 years.
Yes.
Wow, that's an achievement.
And Bob was a business manager of Local 272, Carpenters
Local.
Yes.
And Southland Friends of Labor board member.
Correct.
Do you not like free time?
Well, when you're involved with labor, it's never ending. We actually have to live the job, but and it bleeds over in all the different areas of your life. Actually, I ran for public office. I was a county board member in Will County and stuff like that. But I like to say along that line is, as I was here this morning talking to everybody, we have a lot of labor leaders out here that are actually running for office. And through,
wonderful.
Which is fantastic. And then actually with the Port Council, we actually do a golf outing every year, which we take the entire proceeds and support local individuals that want to run, but they have to be labor orientated for local offices, state office. And I think that's more important than ever in today's times.
Oh my goodness, is it ever?
Yes.
Hey, I don't think people are as familiar with the maritime trades as the other trades. Tell us about.
The maritime trades actually is, we're in the Seafarers office, and we're actually located at 10 East Clinton Street in Joliet. It's a little known area that, and we're not. It's like the best kept secret out there. The Seafarers actually, if you come into the office or whatever, they actually have an apprenticeship program. They'll put you on a ship. They'll train you in Maryland first for a couple weeks. Then they put you on a ship, and then they'll actually container ships, oil products, anything. It's a good job. The maritime trades is actually comprised of affiliates, generally in the construction trades and other associated affiliates. We meet quarterly. Our office is actually there. It's also managed by Marta Perellis. She's actually our Port Council administrator. So It's a good thing. It's a little known, but at the same time, if you not ready for college, if you're not ready for the trade unions or whatever, you can actually stop by. We'll talk to you, and then you might be on a ship in a few months. So.
Wow. And you're talking about a lot of those container ships we see on the Great Lakes?
That is correct. Now, the Great Lakes is very interesting. It's one of, I believe, Illinois' crown jewels. We actually have two harbors. We have Calumet Harbor, and we actually have Navy Pier. There is blue water ships in there. That means they're flying international flags, ocean-going vessels. You can actually stop by there today at one of the ports out there in Calumet Harbor and actually see some of them out there. Then there's the brown water ships and watercraft. That's your tugs, your barges. That's actually the most efficient way to actually move materials is on the water. Along that line is we have locks and dams that the building trades are continually lobbying for money for. It's vital to our America, basically. Also, too, the maritime trades were supportive of the Jones Act, which flies the American flag in America's seaports. And if anybody thinks that we don't have leadership today in the White House, would love to get rid of the Jones Act. They got another thing coming on that. So,
what is it about the Jones Act they don't like?
Basically, you have to fly an American flag on there, so it has to be American ships actually moving this stuff around in the ports and the harbors. So,
and what's wrong with that?
I'm American, so I agree with it. I think it's a good thing. So.
Wow. And tell us about the Chicago Port Council.
Okay, again, the Chicago Port Council, we actually, it was actually established in 1946. Chicago was the first one. Again, we're comprised of building trades affiliates and then other affiliates in the construction trades. We meet quarterly. If you would like any more information on it or whatever, you can contact the Seafarers Hall Maritime's office. And again, that's the one in Joliet. The number is 815-723-8002, 815-723-8002.
And do you guys reach out? I know a lot of the trade unions, they'll go to job fairs, career fairs, visit high schools. Do you do that kind of outreach as well?
Yes, they're working on that. Generally, it's the Seafarers that does the outreach on it. A lot of our outreach is done through local elected officials, allowing them to have access to the opportunity for their jobs. And a good job will solve a lot of problems for most individuals. So,
Tom, I love SAG-AFTRA, but Seafarers, isn't that a cooler name?
It is.
I'd like to be a seafarer.
Bob's living proof of that, too.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you can grow the beard.
I know.
Thing, so.
And that's just, I'm a carpenter, I'm an electrician, I'm a broadcaster.
Yeah.
I'm a seafarer.
Yeah. So I like to take the opportunity, too, to introduce our Vice President here, John Grandy. He's actually here today. Tyson Little, he's the patrolman, business agent with the Seafarers, and he's also the Secretary-Treasurer of the Maritime. He's not here this morning. Marta Perellis, was Tyson waving?
John's in the back.
Oh, yeah.
John, you want to wave to us so we know where you are? There you go,
John.
over in the corner.
All right. And then Marta Perellis, she's actually our port assistant. She's actually the office administrator, too. That's who you'll talk to generally when you give her a call. One thing I put in my notes here today, and I think she needs a shout-out, is Congresswoman Robin Kelly. I think she's fantastic. I actually don't like to watch TV. I actually very selective about what I read along that line, but she's out there speaking out against what's happening here, and I think that goes without saying. And we have many local elected officials here today, county-wides and stuff like that, and township trustee candidates, and then hats off to them. I mean, we cannot thank them enough for what they actually do, and labor is under attack. And I've been a carpenter for 45 years, and then basically I heard that 45 years ago that labor is under attack, I think labor is under attack today at a level that's never been seen before. So,
And more to come.
And more to come.
It really is. I'm okay with, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it feels the world we're living in, we had 2 steps forward and now we're trying to take 5 steps back.
Correct.
It's just everything is at risk, everything is under fire, and if there was ever a time, like you say, for all the unions to come together, for all the elected officials to join with the unions and just stake our ground,
Yeah. And I'll go back in time, and I don't want to date myself, but Tom Villanova, I remember when he was president at Cook County Building Trades, he actually was talking one day, and he said, our members don't understand collective bargaining, and basically they'll do a 4-year contract, 5-year contract, 3-year contract. And I've had members tell me directly to my face, like, hey, look, I've been getting a raise under this president. This is a great thing. And I have to explain to them collective bargaining and whatever. And I think with the trades now, especially, the unions now especially, I think we need to educate those young people on collective bargaining and what it really, truly means.
And on politics, too. That's another
Yes.
thing, too, Bob.
Yes.
We need to educate our younger members on politics. And we talk about all of these things, how we're in the crosshairs and everything, but there's so many things that affect the younger members that they just don't understand, so it is up to us to educate them. I always talk, and my favorite thing, too, is to talk about who took vesting of pensions from 10 years to 5 years. If we ask any of the younger members in this group right now, I bet you nobody can answer that question. It's Bill Clinton who did that. Took it from 10 years to 5 years. So before, if you worked somewhere for 9 years and 5 months and you went to another job, that 9 years and 5 months you had in that pension fund is gone. It was gone. It was disappeared. It was gone. Bill Clinton took that from 10 years to 5 years. And another thing Bill Clinton did, too, who's the last president to balance the budget? Bill Clinton. So when you talk about stuff, it wasn't a Republican that did any of this. And the $17 billion cost or debt that Trump brought up in his last 4 years was the highest in the history of the United States. So when he talks about debt, cutting all these government jobs and doing all of this stuff, it's nonsense. Him and his billionaire buddies don't care about any of that. They don't care about any of it. They just want to cut jobs, and that's Elon Musk's. That's his way of getting into things. And I don't mean to interrupt you, Bob.
No,
not at all.
You're exactly right.
Here's another thing, too.
They want these cuts to not because they want to balance the budget or create a surplus, so that they can justify their tax cut.
They pride themselves in cutting jobs, not making jobs. And Elon Musk is another one of my favorite subjects now. He has 17 government contracts with 11 different government agencies. One alone, his space contract, is $22 billion. That's just one of the 17 contracts. So if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is a conflict of interest. And he prides himself. He leads off with, when I got there, I cut jobs. That's what he prides himself in. We're in the crosshairs of that right now with what's going on with Doge or whatever you want to call that nonsense thing that he's doing. But he cut all those jobs for all of those people, those poor people that work for years and years at government agencies, and they're gone. They get an email at 5 o'clock at night. Don't come back to work. Poor performance. We don't need you. So they've dedicated their lives. But this is something you got to look at next time when you go into that voting booth. And Robin talked about midterms. We talked about midterms with Joan. Next time when you go into that voting booth, you could be next. You could be next. And unions, I talked about PLAs. He's done away with PLAs now, project labor agreements. The agreement for you people that came in a little later in the younger crowd, project labor agreement, you agreed to do something 100% union. He's done away with them. It's gone. It's gone. And right to work is right on the verge of being pushed in, too. So that's another thing. And Joan's heard me talk about this, and Bob's heard me talk about it a million times. I dealt with Donald Trump in person. His tower in Chicago, it's the only tower he's ever built 100% union. The only one he's ever built 100% union. It's the only one that a contractor didn't go bankrupt on. So, and the only reason he did that is because Mayor Daley forced him to do it with a project labor agreement. Otherwise, he wasn't going to build in Chicago. He told him point blank with 3 of us sitting in a room. Either you do what he wants, pointing to me, or you're not going to build in my city. A little more colorful language, but But he said that, and he lived up to it. And that job, when it was done, I had to fly up to New York to his office, and he called me every four-letter word in the book. But anyway, when it was all said and done, he wanted to know how he could transfer our labor group down to some of his other projects in the southern United States because it was built so well. But he'll be the first one to cut union jobs.
Bob Howard, president of the Chicago and Western Lakes Port Council, thank you for being here. We are now going to take a break for news. Tom and I will be right back after this.
Thank you.
It's time for Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive.
Joan, as always, exceptional work from you from, your TV days all the way up to the day. You're truly exceptional, and thanks for this great show you have.
It's time for Joan Esposito on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
We are in Joliet for a special broadcast sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor. They are a political action committee. They support friendly candidates running in South Cook County, Will County, Kankakee County. We recorded this broadcast earlier today. Joining us now, well, of course, Tom Villanova is here with me. He is my co-host. He's the Southland Friends of Labor board member that we have been talking to, but we are both joined now by State Senator Bill Cunningham, represents the 18th District, which is Bill's south side of Chicago, southwest suburbs?
That's correct.
And why did you come here today? What is it that you like to do at these occasions?
I never pass up a chance to get together with my friends in labor. I represent a district that has a large labor membership. I'm going to guess one of the largest in the state. And I think one of my primary jobs as a state senator is to be a voice for those constituents in Springfield. So I never miss a chance to get together with labor, find out what's on their mind, find out how we can do a better job at advancing the cause of organized labor in Springfield.
Well, I know you're the president pro tem of the Illinois Senate right now. What do your colleagues need to know about what's going on with labor?
I think what we have to be cognizant is what we can do in state government to improve our economy, to grow our economy, and to put people to work, in jobs that pay a living wage. There's a number of ways that we can do that. An area where I've spent a lot of my focus in Springfield is in the energy sector. We have tremendous opportunities for growth there, and growth for union jobs that pay a living wage, whether it's in renewable energy, whether it's in nuclear energy, something that's very important here, a non-carbon emitting form of energy that is very important here in the Will County area. Those are things that I think we really need to be focused on, Springfield, to preserve the jobs we have and create new ones.
Bill, specifically, I know that renewable energy is really important and something near and dear to your heart, but what does that actually mean? Like the bills that you work on, that you get passed, what do they create? What do they provide?
So what we try to do is incentivize the development of new sources of energy, mostly solar and wind. There are billions of dollars that have been invested and will be invested in this in the state of Illinois. And every one of those projects, we put special conditions in place in the state here to ensure that those jobs pay a competitive wage, that they hire a union workforce to install those panels, to run the wires. Members of the IBEW and many other locals work on those projects. And the benefit of it is twofold. Obviously, we end up with renewable generation that fights global warming. We all know the advantage of that. But we also have the advantage of putting people to work in jobs that pay well and reinvest that money into our community. So that's why I think renewable energy and incentivizing renewable energy is so important for the state of Illinois.
And I know there have been a number of state-based, state-funded projects, but do we now have to worry about how the state is going to have to compensate for a loss of federal infrastructure money?
We do. A lot of these projects, whether it's a big solar or wind project, the people who finance them use several different instruments to fund that construction. Part of it is the state RPS, that we have the Renewable Portfolio Standards, where we provide a subsidy to this development. They also will leverage subsidies from the federal government, or more importantly, tax breaks from the federal government. That is in danger right now. And if you take that leg of the stool away, it's going to make it a lot harder for renewable development to continue to grow. So that's a real concern for us, and I think it's something that we're going to be spending a lot of time debating in Springfield this year and trying to come up with solutions.
What did you think of JB's State of the State / budget speech?
I don't think there was a word of it I disagreed with. I thought he did a really good job of, first of all, focusing on where we are economically as a state. We went into this budget season a little bit worried that we were going to be facing some deficits. Fortunately, the amount of revenue that the state collects has been projected to increase next year. So that means we're not going to go into what we thought could be a disastrous budget season that would require us to cut a lot of spending. We will have to trim around the edges, but thankfully, because of economic growth over the last year, we're seeing some robust revenue numbers coming in that will allow us to maintain the level of support we provide to our constituents now, making sure we have a good social service safety net, making sure we can fully fund education. So we're very encouraged by those things, and I thought the governor did a good job of laying that out during his address.
And even though obviously you care about your constituents, you care about what's going on in Springfield, it sounds like you work very closely with people like Tom.
All the time, yes. And they're with unions throughout our state. And there are a lot of things. I talked a little bit about renewable development. One of the things that we're really missing, and something as we go forward in the next year we have to focus on, is the need for more transmission. You know, we're completely rewiring the way we generate electricity and the way we move it around. And we simply do not have the transmission in place to deal with it. So we talked to Tom and other his union sisters and brothers throughout the state about focusing on that. And I think, unfortunately, that's something that requires a national response to, and I'm not sure we're going to get that kind of national response. We had the Biden administration talking about it. So we're going to have to look here in Illinois about what we can do about that. Some of these things are going to cost upfront investments. You know, they're going to cost ratepayers money up front. But when we increase supply, when we increase transmission, we'll actually bring the cost of energy down, which will save us ratepayers in the long run. But it's going to require we make those upfront investments, and that's something I think we'll focus on a lot in Springfield this year.
When you talk about transmission, are you talking about what we call the grid?
Sure. And one of the things that's really complicated, and we can get real nerdy about this, but Illinois is part of 2 multi-state grids, and we have a very limited amount of control on the decisions those grids make. One feeds the northern part of the state, the other the southern part of the state. And traditionally, those grids have relied on fossil fuel sources for generating electricity, and they've been slow to bring on the renewable sources. A lot of times we talk about the queue, the line that these projects have to get into. It'll take 4 or 5 years before renewable projects can be hooked up to the grid, and part of that is because of the lack of transmission. I talked about, we're seeing the regional transmitting organizations not really doing it, so it's something we might have to take charge of here in the state.
I don't know how much we can recover if we have a really successful midterm election, but I'm hearing people say that the damage being done coming out of the White House could take years and years to fix. Do you think that's true, Tom? Or is that what you're seeing?
I think to undo some of the things that he's intending to do, job-wise and everything else, it's going to be a long, long recovery. And once again, people, and like Bill said too, I can kind of equate this to the power grid stuff. Until your house is out of power, you don't appreciate any of this stuff.
Right.
When your house is out of power, then you're going to hit it. You're going to start reading about this, and you're going to worry about it and everything. I think Bill talked about the multi-state stuff. Texas is a perfect example. A couple of years ago, Texas had an outage. Texas didn't want to be on the grid with anybody else. Nobody else. We're all by ourselves. We're Texas. We're big. We're bold. You know, we're going to be our own country, whatever they want to do down there. But there were people that were out of power there for 3 to 4 weeks because they had to rebuild a bunch of stuff and integrate it into the grid. So doing this stuff that Bill is talking about is so important, and it creates jobs. But I don't know how we're going to get it through. Like Bill said, it's going to have to be state funded, not federally funded, because they don't care about any of that stuff. And nobody cares about it until you're out of power.
Yep.
When you're out of power, then you're going to start making the phone calls to Bill's office.
That's
everywhere
right.
else.
And I do worry. I sometimes say, like, people unfortunately might need to see the gates of hell before they realize the sort of problems we're facing. I hope it doesn't come to that.
And the flip side of that was, I think Joe Biden did a lot of things that were good, but it's like trying to turn a cruise ship. You know, you get a big thing like infrastructure passed, and then the paperwork, and then getting the money allotted, and then getting the projects vetted and getting the projects underway. And I firmly believe we're going to see Donald Trump taking credit for all this stuff. Look, you got a new bridge. That's, I'm the president.
Absolutely. And all of his minions will take credit for it, too, and point to him.
It's one thing that's kind of interesting. A lot of these projects, these renewable projects that the Biden administration funded, are going into red states, into red districts in blue states, like here in Illinois. And there's a tremendous local benefit. The amount of property taxes that are paid to local schools when a wind farm or a solar farm get built, it's amazing. So you could see some pushback from some of these locales who are really going to be the primary beneficiaries of it, and they happen to be in a lot of red areas.
Mm-hmm. And there's a million pluses to this, too. I mean, climate change is not, it's not nonsense. It's real. It's not going to affect us here, but the younger generation it's going to affect. And this helps that, too. It's not just the one creating jobs,
That's right.
the one doing all of this. It's a multi-thing to look at because it helps everybody in the long term.
No doubt.
Yeah. Anything you want to share with our audience, Bill, before we wrap this up?
No. Other than maybe restating the bigger theme you've talked about here today, putting people to work, keeping people to work in jobs that pay a living wage is such an important thing to me as a Democratic elected official, and I know is so important to our friends here in labor. And I think what we maybe need to concentrate on, this is something that I think you and your listeners talk about all the time, is how do we get that message out to rank and file voters? I think we've failed to do that as Democratic elected officials. I think to a certain extent, some of the leaders in labor have failed to do that. We're losing a lot of our rank and file members when it comes time to vote. And I think it's because we as Democrats don't talk about economic issues enough. We get distracted by other things.
They think we're the elites, not the party of the people.
That is exactly right.
Nothing could be further from the truth than that, too.
Yes.
I mean, that's proven by his surroundings of the billionaires that he had that don't worry about putting a gallon of milk on the table or a loaf of bread on the table at the end of the day. They're in a different tax bracket than anybody in this room that I know.
Yep, and we just have not done a good enough job of talking about that, and that's something that all my fellow Democratic elected officials really have to look within themselves, and that's something we have to change.
But you being here, Bill, is an education for everybody that's in this room, too, and you being a friend of labor, I know you and I work together a lot in Springfield, but you being here just shows these people that you care about labor, that you care about union labor, and that's the bottom line of the whole thing right here.
And anytime you want to come back on the radio with me, you just give us a yell.
Thanks,
okay?
Joan. Appreciate that.
State Senator Bill Cunningham represents the 18th District.
Thank you.
Tom Villanova and I will be right back after a break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Every weekday afternoon from 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT 820.
I'm in Joliet. This broadcast sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor. My co-host, Tom Villanova, is a board member for Southland Friends of Labor. And We've done a few of these, and my memory gets smushed, so I don't always remember where I've been or when I've been there, but I do remember Kaitlynd French, who's a Southland Friends of Labor board member and an executive member of Nurses for St. Joe's Nurses Association. Kaitlynd, I have to tell you, when we talked before, not that Tom isn't a superstar, but people still to this day remember the interview where I was talking to you and you talked about your story. That resonated with the audience in a way that it stuck with them in a way that few things really do. So if you wouldn't mind telling your story again, that would be great.
Yeah, and thanks for having me here again. So I was previously a registered nurse at St. Joseph Medical Center right here in Joliet. We are a union hospital, thank God, by Illinois Nurses Association. So this happened back in September. I was called to go represent another union nurse who was under investigation. Went to hear this investigation, came back to my unit, ended up going back to finish the investigation on another unit, came back to my floor and found that my direct supervisor and the director tried to pull me into their office and sort of like interview me, interrogate me on like why I had left, what I was doing. It felt very much like they were trying to interrogate me, trying to get me to say something that I did or trying to tell me I did something wrong, which put me in a fluster. I mean, putting me on the spot just for going to represent another nurse, something that like is in our contract, something that our union pushes for, something that like nurses need. Like nurses need support. They need someone there to back them up. Because management, I would love to say that they're on our side in like a perfect world, but they're not. They're there for themselves. They're not there for us. So I was told, oh, you're not in trouble. We just wanted to like see what you were doing and tell you kind of like, this is how you should be doing it. And I basically was flustered. I was having an anxiety attack. I was like, I'm not going to speak to you guys unless I have like my representation because I don't feel safe. So about a week later, I received a call that I was being investigated for what happened on that day. So I had my rep, of course, right away and was told that like, oh, you weren't in trouble for leaving, but actually like you caused a safety event because you left. And this was a week after I went to this investigatory meeting. So at any point in time, 5 minutes after I came back, they could have told me this. They said they didn't find this until the morning of my investigation, which I found pretty odd. They couldn't cite a policy that I violated. They had said I violated something, but they did not give me a policy. 30 minutes after I left that meeting, I was called and told that I was suspended until the end of my investigation. Now, typically per like the hospital's policy, that's supposed to be about 3 days. I was on an unpaid suspension for 2 weeks. Now, I'm head of household for my family. My husband stays at home with our children. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So that's just terrible to just take me off on the spot without really like, you're innocent until proven guilty. And obviously they had thought I was guilty. So after the 2 weeks, I received an email that like the investigation had come to resolution and I was going to attend this meeting. Now, I had made an assumption that this was going to be an in-person meeting. I'd been disciplined all year prior based on me speaking out, whether it's at City Hall, whether it's me going to Springfield, whether it's people I've spoken to while we've been on the strike line. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get disciplined. Turned out it was a Zoom meeting. I was not going to be face-to-face with my supervisor, face-to-face with my director. It was going to be on a screen, a computer screen. So in that Zoom meeting, I was terminated. They said that I had violated this policy, which I cited again. I was never given this policy. I had to look it up on my own time, and I didn't actually violate this policy. And I remember their like HR rep was like, oh, well, my computer's freezing, so I actually can't like pull it up. And so essentially I was terminated. They tried to get me for representing another nurse who was in trouble. And if that isn't the most like anti-union thing you could do, you're not going to let your nurses protect your other nurses. I mean, that's just lawless. And the hospital that I used to work for is a Catholic institution, and in their policies, they quote the Bible. Like, there's Bible verses on the units when you enter them. And for them to, appear like they are God's people and to fire someone for protecting somebody is just the most, sacrilegious thing I can think of.
So what's happened in the interim?
Yeah, so that's another funny thing that I've run into. I've tried to get jobs. I landed a job, shortly after, done all my onboarding, and then a week before I was supposed to start orientation, they rescinded their job offer. And I asked why, and they said, well, we heard some things about you at your old hospital. And I said, well, can I ask, what's being said? And they're like, no, that's confidential. Which, if you're speaking about me, I at least deserve to know what that is. So I haven't been able to find work. I've been thankful that my union, I've been doing odds and ends with them. I've been helping with their grievance tracker. I've been helping to organize St. Joe's now, because there's a lot of things happening with their transition from Ascension and towards Prime. So I've been trying to do that, trying to stay afloat. I'm waiting for my termination to go to an arbitration. I'm hopeful that will happen, but a lot of the people who spoke before me, the NLRB, a lot of the stuff that's happening in our government slows all that down because of who's in office. So even if it gets to arbitration, it's praying that we have an arbitrator that's actually fair and unbiased, and actually believes in labor law and not kind of what's going on right now.
Yeah. And I think the reason your story resonated so much with my listeners is it's one thing for Tom and I to talk about this program's being terminated or that program's being terminated, but what makes an impact on people is hearing somebody, this is my life. This is what happened in my life, and this is how I was hurt because of these things that happened in my life. And as eloquent as I am and Tom is, it is stories like yours that really bring it home.
It's real life. It's real life. And if you don't think there's a difference, and Kaitlynd said this, if you don't think there's a difference between management and us, the workers, you're sadly mistaken. She's living proof that management doesn't care about the workers. They don't care at all about anybody except themselves. And nurses, I can tell you right now, when COVID was hit, they all went to work. Some of us didn't go to work. Some of us couldn't go to work. When COVID hit, they went to work. They lived in different parts of their houses from their family, but they were there.
Yeah.
Well, management is interested in A, the bottom line, and B, looking good to their board members or their stockholders. That's where you get into the weirdness of this whole for-profit medical system that we have here. And it's not really human-centric, is it?
No, and that's the craziest thing is, I've been a nurse for 5 years, and in 5 years I have learned that there's a lot of politics in nursing, and my idea of nursing is patient-centered. I thought St. Joe's was a faith-based place where people get well. And what I've seen, I've seen people lie in beds and there's not enough people to take care of them. And it's because the hospital would rather save money than save lives, which is the craziest thing to see in a hospital. I know it happens in nursing homes. It happens everywhere in healthcare, but it's really hard to see patients who need help the most not get it simply because someone else above them says, we would just like to save money.
Tom, I have a terrible feeling that there's going to be a lot more Kaitlynds in the next couple of years.
I think the precedent has been set, and there's no recourse. You're not going to get any recourse from the courts, that's for sure, because the courts are all indebted now to Washington, to the nonsense, to the billionaires that are going on that don't care unless if they were the ones that were in the hospital and needed care. Then the story might change. But they'd have their own personal care anyway, and they'd have, they wouldn't be thrown in a hospital. There's not a single person in this room that doesn't go to the hospital. The nurses are the ones that do all the work in the hospital. They do all the work. The doctors are great. They're fantastic. That's all fantastic. But the day-to-day stuff, and when you need something, the nurses are the ones that do that, and they're the ones that should be brought up.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So what, you say you've been able to pick up some union work with the nurses union?
Yes. Yes, so I've been really thankful to be working with them. UIC, UI Health, was just on strike this past November, so I was on the strike line with them, helping to organize them. They just got a big contract, so woo. St. Joe's, obviously, St. Joe's is always going through something. They are transitioning from Ascension Health to Prime Health. So like you mentioned earlier, we were non-for-profit. Now the hospital is going to be a for-profit. So there's a lot of anxiety with that transition. We're trying to stay organized. We're trying to stay strong and really stay together, because this is just sort of an unknown time for nurses. And I think unfortunately, after what happened with me, there was sort of a quietness to our union. They saw that I was basically retaliated against for standing up for someone else, and that scares people. And some people, that really affects them, that really kind of has them with their heads down, unfortunately. So just trying to keep that positivity and trying to keep that optimism, like you have someone that has your back. Like we need to have each other's back. Now more than ever, as Tom and like everyone else on stage mentioned, like we need to have each other.
And Kaitlyn's story too, if she didn't have a union, and everybody in this room, if you didn't have a union, you'd be standing there all on your own. And when they told you that there's the door, you'd have no recourse at all. You'd have to walk out the door and go looking for another job. When you got the union, you got everybody behind you.
Absolutely.
Kaitlyn, thank you so much for telling your story again.
Thank you.
And for being a Southland Friends of Labor board member.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Tom Villanova and I are going to be right back after our break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
This broadcast is sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor. We are in Joliet. We have recorded this earlier today. We gave Tom Villanova a bathroom break, so we have a couple of other guests who've decided to sit in with me. From the United Auto Workers Region 4, we have Director Brandon Campbell and Assistant Director Lucas Despain. Welcome. Thank you so much. You got big shoes to fill with Tom being gone here. For my radio listeners who aren't always familiar with the ins and outs of the union, Brandon, what is Region 4? What does that mean?
So Region 4 of the UAW consists of 12 states, going from here all the way to Colorado, back up to Montana, over to Wisconsin, and back down again.
That's huge.
Very large geographic region.
You guys, travel around and talk to all those members in all those places?
We find ourselves traveling a lot more than we'd probably like to sometimes with that big of a region, yeah. And
Brandon, your personal story. You're a second-generation UAW member. Tell us about that.
So I grew up in the union. My dad was a long-time union advocate, always involved in politics at every level in the nation. So I grew up knowing and loving and hearing the stories about unions. Ever since the day I was born, in 1994, I finally hired into Chrysler Belvedere, Stellantis, I think they call it now, but it'll always be Chrysler to me. So I've been there about 31 years this year.
And Lucas, you came to the UAW through John Deere. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I worked at the factory in East Moline, Illinois, where they produce combines, large corn or wheat harvesting equipment. I was a welder there for several years, and pretty early on I got hired in 2004, an election year, so I realized that my politics and that of the UAW were pretty closely aligned, so it was an easy match for me.
Now, the UAW came under some degree of controversy when, your leader spoke at the Republican National Convention. He said that he offered to speak at the DNC, but, they sort of did not invite him to go there. And there was concern that, the UAW was maybe maybe supporting Donald Trump over Kamala Harris.
Let me cut you off there. Wrong
Please
union.
cut me off there.
The UAW spoke at the DNC. Sean Fain, our president,
I've got
spoke at the DNC wearing the shirt that said Trump is a scab.
I've got my, sorry. Thank you. I got my union
Absolutely.
leaders flip-flopped because I was so proud of him. I was at the DNC, and that speech was so amazing. I apologize. My mistake. Maybe we can get that out in editing, the fact that Joan made a mistake?
Wrong
we
Sean,
can
it's
we can
okay.
fix that. Yeah, Sean, I get
Yeah.
confused. So tell me about when you travel the country and you talk to UAW members. What are they saying to you? What are they happy about? What are they concerned about?
Our members are excited that we as a union, we as labor across all unions, are truly standing up now. Across the UAW and across all of the unions, I think we've had a fighting spirit, fighting people, fighting members. Not always has our leadership matched that fire in their belly. And now we are. The UAW is, other unions are signing up with us. For example, our Big Three stand-up strike was supported by over 70% of the American public. They were on our side against the multi-billionaires of this country. But what people are sick of hearing, and the Democrats, the diehard Democrats listening, will struggle with this, but they're sick of hearing about labor and Democrats. We don't care. We don't care. Our members don't care if there's a D, an R, or an I next to any politician's name. They just want those politicians to support workers, to support the working class, and stop kowtowing to the billionaire class.
And Lucas, when I talk to my audience, one of the things that I say when it comes to any elected official is don't necessarily put stock in what they say. Watch what they do. Because we have all seen the politicians who talk a certain way to get elected, and then when they're in office, don't support those. Like we saw with a woman from Oregon who was elevated to a labor position. Right. Used to be pro-union, and now suddenly right to work is looking apparently a lot better to her.
Yeah, one thing that we see a lot and we hear a lot from our members in the UAW is trade agreements. And both parties have passed trade agreements that have devastated a lot of our workplaces, that have devastated manufacturing, where that's kind of our core territory. And it doesn't matter which letter was at the end of their name because both have signed up for it. Now, we happen to have somebody in the White House who has said they were going to not tax overtime, they were going to, fix all these trade deals. Well, one of the trade deals that has been terrible for the UAW and for manufacturing workers is the same one that he signed, the USMCA. So we've seen a variety of politicians from different stripes say all of the right things, but then when it comes actually time to pass laws, oftentimes we're left disappointed, and that's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. I've talked to some of the other unions, especially with the infrastructure bill. Trade unions are particularly concerned that a lot of projects will never actually come to fruition. What do you guys see coming?
Well, I'm going to stick with the UAW and what I know, right? And here's what I know. I heard Tom earlier talk about printed materials. Make sure the union bug is on there. This is like no other time in history. We have to stand together. All the unions, all of labor need to stand together. I would say the same holds true when you go to buy a vehicle, right? Look at your VIN. Go to UAW.org. Look at our list of UAW-made vehicles. It's not enough to make sure that your vehicle is made in America. It's got to be union-made as well. Otherwise, those
and it's so confusing to people because it's like, oh, well, the parts come from here, the assembly is here, the forging is here. I'm not even sure what an American car is anymore.
So I'll make it easy, and then I'll make it even easier.
The simpler, the better.
1, look at your VIN. The first digit, the first character is, if it's a 1, 4, or 5, those are made in the USA. To make sure it's union made, go to UAW.org. I'm going to steal my assistant director's line. the easy way to not buy the wrong vehicle, in most cases, remember, if it starts with a 3, it ain't for me. If it starts with a letter, just forget her.
I like that. But a 2 is bad as well.
2 is, I put air quotes around that because a 2 is made in Canada. Now, we, labor, can compete with Canada on an equal playing field. But when we're competing with the 3s, Mexican-made vehicles, no offense to the Mexican worker, it's these companies going down to Mexico and other countries to exploit their labor, right? We cannot compete with $3 an hour labor. We can't do it and survive.
We hear all the time about this crisis at the border. For a lot of us, for a long time, that crisis hasn't been working people coming north, it's been jobs going south. And that's a crisis that we really need to address in this country, and unfortunately far too few are talking about that.
And you said look at the VIN 1, 4, or 5, because a lot of car manufacturers, like Hyundai, you buy a Hyundai, I don't know where they make them. And sometimes I'm surprised to find out cars that I'm assuming came over on a container boat are actually being made like in the United States. It's really confusing for the consumer.
Joan, I love that you said that because I think we have a lot of well-meaning people in this room and in your audience, the listening audience, who are buying. They go out and they intentionally buy an American-made vehicle, but they don't realize that it's not union-made. And those workers, those companies are exploiting workers largely in the South and pulling our wages, benefits, and conditions of work downward with them. And as our wages go down, our opportunity to buy things that every other union worker produce is diminished. So we all have to stick together.
Well, you're talking to one of those people. 5 years ago, I bought a Tesla. They make them in California,
Right.
And now my partner Ray wants to get me one of those magnetic bumper stickers that said basically, I bought this before I knew Elon was an a-hole, And I
Loves the sticker.
Yeah, I mean, because now I didn't know how to do my research. Made in California, American company,
Right.
It's also important to note that if somebody buys a Chevy, a Buick, a Cadillac, pick the American brand, again with air quotes, because a lot of those vehicles, a lot of the traditional big 3, those are made in Mexico or China or somewhere else. So that what the Director Campbell said about the VIN, that's incredibly important because you can't just go and look at a brand or a nameplate because that doesn't necessarily indicate anything. There are plenty of Chevy quad cab trucks or the Ram diesel trucks, the 3/4 full ton, whatever. Those Rams are almost all made in Mexico. And you'll see tons of times where people are driving around with American flags all over them because they're well-meaning and well-intentioned, but they don't realize, frankly, it can be confusing. But if you know where to look, that VIN, it's really easy to determine where your vehicle
That's
is made.
so important because now there's car companies that don't even reflect an ethnicity. There's Rivian, there's Lucent. I mean, they're the wonderful made-up names that tell me nothing about where they're coming from. And that's 1, 4, or 5 should be the first letter of the VIN.
And that could be a foreign nameplate vehicle because they do make a lot of, they're not UAW made, they're not union made, but a lot of foreign vehicles, as people would describe them, are often made here in the States. And in that case, at least we have the opportunity to work with those workers. Those workers in the USA, they can, like Volkswagen workers did recently, they can join a union if they so choose. So that's way different than in China or Mexico where, it's a lot harder for a worker to have a voice in those workplaces because even in Mexico, what unions they have are traditionally kind of government unions that will pretend like we care, but we're not really interested in bargaining.
So 1, 4, or 5 tells me that it was made in the United States, but it still doesn't say that it was made by a UAW worker.
Right.
For that, I have to go to the website?
Yeah, if you Google it, union-made vehicle, it'll direct you pretty quickly to uaw.org.
And this year, for the first time, there's a couple of Volkswagens on there. There's an Acura or 2 on there because we have members that are building those cars.
I'd like you to start building that bus. It reminds me of my childhood, like the Scooby-Doo van. You know, it's not really good mechanically yet, but I assume someday it will be. But yeah, the cars and like a Mustang, that's a quintessential American car. Would that start with a 1, 4, or 5?
The electric Mustang, I think it's called the Mach-E, that is made in Mexico.
Really?
But the traditional Mustang, the fast, loud, that Mustang is made by UAW members here in the States.
Why not the electric one?
You got to talk to the billionaires. That's the reason, right? Because they like their billions. Mm-hmm. They like their billions, and they like to step on us.
Wow.
$3 an hour workers versus $30 an hour workers here. That's why they do it.
Yeah, look at their profits. Look at their stock buybacks, all of that stuff. The tax rate in this country on people like Elon Musk, who you brought up earlier, back in 1945, the tax rate was 94% on anything over $200,000. That equates to about $3.3 million in today's dollars. They just want the control to make more and more billions.
Guys, thank you so much. This is such good information. Brandon Campbell, Director, UAW Region 4. Lucas Despain, Assistant Director, UAW Region 4. This has been so educational. We are going to take a break. We're going to be back with more after this.
Now back to Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
I wouldn't trust anybody else.
On WCPT 820.
This broadcast is sponsored by the Southland Friends of Labor. They're a political action committee. They support friendly candidates in South Cook County, Will County, Kankakee County. Southland Friends of Labor board member Tom Villanova is here with me to wrap things up. But while Tom was given a little bit of a respite there for a couple of minutes, he has come back here with more papers, more things he needs to announce. So, Tom, take it away.
We have a couple more elected officials that are with us. Tiffany Sturdivant, Crete Township trustee, is here. Karen Stuckel, Will County Recorder of Deeds, is here with us. Thank you guys for being here this morning. Thank you for everything you do for Southland Friends of Labor. One other thing, too, while we're on the subject, we're going to tour the apprentice school when we're done here. It's right through the parking lot here, the brand new revamped apprentice school, so you can see what electrical apprentices actually go through when we're finished here. Right back to you, Joan.
And if somebody is interested in a union job or finding out what's involved in a union job and doesn't have a kind of a career program going on anywhere close by, each union has its own website, or they can go to Friends of Labor.
You can go to each union's website, but what I suggest is go to the building trades website, Will County or Chicago and Cook County Building Trades. There's you can go in there and you can click on all of the apprenticeships. It'll give you the requirements, when the signups are. And don't forget, here's another little tidbit too that I never thought of until Joan just brought this up. The Department of Labor controls all the apprenticeships. We don't control how many people come in, how many people we take, all of that. The Department of Labor oversees interviews. The Department of Labor oversees the tests that are taken. So we don't know what's going to happen with all of those either. But go to the Will County Building Trades site, Will and Grundy County Building Trades site, or Chicago and Cook County Building Trades site. Click on that. There you can go right to the apprenticeships, and you can click on all of the apprenticeships. I know at Chicago and Cook County there's 27 of them. You can click on there. It'll give you the requirements. It'll give you the sign-up dates. It'll give everything about what that trade does also. One other thing that most of the building trades unions do, they'll go through high schools, and they'll do a trade day to go through high school, and they'll have a booth where you can come and talk to the apprentice coordinator and the apprentice teachers, and you can find out about the different apprenticeships. But understand the DOL controls all of this. They control the signups. They control everything. They control every part of it. So we don't know what's going to happen with any of that, too, in the future with the storm we have coming, the orange storm that we have coming.
Yeah, really. And one thing that I will say, from having talked to a lot of different union people over the years, the requirements and what makes a good applicant is very different for different unions. It's not, don't think that if you log on to one website and you go, well, I don't fulfill this, or I'm not that. that doesn't mean that the next one you go to might not be perfect for you, because they're very different in all kinds of what, the kind of people they're looking for, the kind of classroom work, the kind of working conditions. It's really, I don't know, it feels like there's something for everybody.
And that's a great point too, Joan. It's like I talked, the one-stop shop, and if you go to the building trades websites, you can pan through all of them instead of going to each single website. You can pan through all of them through the building trades websites and see, like Joan said, the requirements are different. Most of them require a GED or a high school degree, but other than that, you can page through and see what the requirements are. The requirements are pretty minimal with most of them, because you're going to learn everything there and on the job. So just sign up when the sign-ups are open, and hopefully you can get in, but understand the DOL controls this. I keep on harping on that, but there's a reason, because we don't know what the DOL is going to do in the future, and we don't know what jobs are going to come up. What the DOL looks at is the people that retired that year and the amount of work that's coming up. That's the amount of apprentices we can take in. So when they look at stuff, they're looking at stuff with a little different outlook than we look at things. Once again, we have the South Suburban College Highway Construction class with us today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We bring a group every time, and it's fantastic for you guys to see, you guys and girls to see everything that goes on here and get a taste of labor firsthand with everything. And that's why I stress, please go through the apprentice school when you're here and talk to people, talk to everybody. Every trade was represented here today, so talk to people. Don't be shy. Talk to them, and talk to them about when they're going to open their books, what the requirements are, but use those websites also. One other little thing, and Joan loves my notes, but I read a lot, so one of the things that I just looked at too, when we're talking about cutting all the government jobs, the employment rate with the U.S. government right now is the same numbers as it was in 1970. So when you talk about there's these huge increases in people and everything like that, it's the same amount of people at government as in 1970. One of the other things too, and this will bring things home with some of the younger group that doesn't quite get what I'm talking about most of the time. I'm old, so hang with me. The Super Bowl. Our big guy had to go to the Super Bowl. First president to ever go to the Super Bowl. You would think it's something, okay. Well, he was going because Taylor Swift was there, and he wanted to do the anti-Taylor Swift thing. That was the whole thing with him. But it cost the U.S. government $10 million to send him to the Super Bowl. By the time they did Secret Service, by the time they did the airfare, by the time they did the suite, by the time they did all of it. How many of those government jobs could we have saved with that $10 million so he could be a showboat and show himself in front of Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl party? So it's things like that you hear when you read, you listen to, and everybody up on this panel, and Joan has been talking about this too, how we need to educate our members, educate our younger members. It's huge. That's the biggest thing. But read and listen to the people that you're talking to. If you're fortunate enough to get into an apprenticeship, listen to your teachers. Listen to everybody that's in there. Talk to people. Go to union meetings. Do all of that. That's where you find out stuff. You don't find out stuff over the lunch break when somebody was there and was half in the bag and whatever. But you find out stuff when you go yourself. Do it yourself. Go yourself. Find out firsthand what's going on. Don't take the word of somebody else. And the same thing with politics. Read. Talk to people that are involved. We had Bill Cunningham here, a state senator here. Bill's been a great friend of ours. We got Al Riley, who sits on our board. Al, our state rep, and Al and I work together. That's how we got to know each other. Al and I got to know each other in Springfield by doing things in Springfield together. Al comes from a union family. Al knows what it's all about. Talk to these people. Talk to Al Riley. Al will talk to you. He'll talk your ear off, too. Al will talk to you. But talk to guys like Al and talk to these people. That's why we have these things, is so the younger generation can talk to people, get educated on all of these issues, and do things. I know Mike Masaleo is here. I don't know if Mike's still here. Mike's president of the Chicago and Cook County Building Trades. Mike's in the back. Go talk to Mike. Go talk to Mike for a while. He represents all the unions in Chicago and Cook County. Talk to him. I don't know if Doc Gregory came or not. If Doc's not here, Doc is the president of Will and Grundy County Building Trades. But look at our board. Look at the board, the list of boards that's on your table. Look at the list of board members. They're all here. Go talk to some of those people. They're from all the different trades. If you're interested in being a plumber, Bill is here right now. If you're interested in being a plumber, go talk to Bill. He's sitting all by himself there. He's lonely. Go talk to Bill. Go talk to people. You got Frank DiGiovanni from the laborers in the back there. Frank is easy to spot. Go talk to Frank. We got every trade is represented here. So talk to those people and find out firsthand what's going on.
Talk to those people, go to your union meetings, and whatever source of information is in your life, make sure there's more than one, okay? You can't be fed lies and disinformation if you're cross-checking what you read, what you hear. I don't care if you're on a subreddit. I don't care if you're watching Fox. I don't care if you're watching CNN. You can't rely even on just Joan Esposito as your single source of information. As reliable as she is, and she is, don't make me your sole source of what's going on in the world. What is going on in the world is too big and too complicated. And I second everything you just heard from Tom Villanova, Southland Friends of Labor board member. Thank you so much for this opportunity for WCPT to spread the union message.
Joan, thank you again for everything that you do for labor, and thank you and your whole crew. Thank you guys for all being here, too. We appreciate everything, and thank you to Andy, Rico, and the whole group for 176. Thank you guys all for having us at your beautiful hall here. This has been a great event. We look forward to having everybody back again. Thank you. Don't forget about the apprentice school tour.
That's going to do it for me. Driving it home, well, I guess she's driving a little early today. Maybe she's on her bike. I'm not so sure. Patty Vasquez is up next. I will see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Good evening, my friends. Good night.